I'm very happy to leave you in the great hands of Andrea Bolisake this morning and have a discussion about, okay, what has been done before, what is being done these days, and what else can we do together in order to support entrepreneurs grow beyond the core markets. So, enjoy.
Good man. Good morning, everyone. This is a huge responsibility. We have fairly limited amount of time and 4 voices that have lived through and through the diaspora experience, and they have plenty of things to share. So I'll try to do justice to their expertise. I prepared a couple of questions, but given that I feel like it's good for you to know who is who and what they do and brings them here today, I'm going to ask each and every one of them to maybe say a few things in 1 minute of who you are and what brings you here in the role of diaspora, and then we'll get to the questions that we've prepared. Is that a good path forward? Should I start with Jan?
Sure. I'm Andrei Danescu. I'm one of the founders of a company called Texory. We're 3 Romanian co-founders. We've been friends for a very long time in Romania. We then met again when we were in the UK and started this business. Texory is a data intelligence business for logistics. We're a full-stack company, so we use autonomous robots to digitize warehouses. And as a company, we are designing, manufacturing the robots, building them in-house. So we have complete end-to-end control over our technology. It's a global business. It started from the UK, and we have customers across the UK, across Europe, and a very strong presence in North America, as well as Canada and Mexico. So it's very exciting to be able to share some of this experience and how we're working with the network to strengthen the entrepreneurial's outreach and ambitions.
Thank you, Andrei. Silviu?
Good morning, everyone. Silviu Homoceanu is my name. I'm a computer scientist. I am the CTO and co-founder of Teltia. It's an industrial tech company that basically sells software to factories to make them more efficient. We help shop floor operations produce more with less or similar resources. And we do that with the help of computer vision, basically a combination of hardware, software, sensors installed at the level of the lines in every factory, analyzing everything that happens, perceiving, understanding the operations, digitizing the processes, optimizing them, making proposals of what to change in terms of layouts of the factory, of maybe the operations themselves or the interplay with the logistics. And we are operating globally, significant customers, significant presence in Europe and some in North America. I'm the technical co-founder, studied in Iași, left for doing my PhD in Germany and have been living for about 20 years there. Had some contact with Romanian entrepreneurs and happy to share about that experience here.
Thank you. Vlad?
Hi, I'm Vlad. I'm the managing partner of Sparking Capital. Sparking Capital is an early stage venture capital fund. I'm representing here ROPEA, so the Romanian Association of Private Equity and Venture Capital. So I'm trying to have somehow 2 hats. I have different experiences in diaspora. I've been working in Africa, in Ethiopia, many years ago. I've been working in Serbia, recently in Germany, and I've moved back to Romania. So I had different experiences of moving abroad, coming back, moving abroad, coming back. And I'm trying to bring this kind of perspectives to this meeting. Thank you.
Tiberio?
On my side, I work with startups from all over the world. I've been mentoring through incubators and accelerators in the US, in Europe, in the MENA region, in Asia. And personally, I lived in France, in the United Arab Emirates, and in China. And to the point of our discussion, I always get questions from Romanian startups on how to scale to those regions.
Well, thank you very much. And I think this gives you kind of a perspective that this panel can bring. And I think often we talk about diaspora as being this broad ecosystem of resources that could be of service for founders when they want to branch out abroad. But I think the angle that I want to bring in today is like, how do we build those connections? How do we nurture and maintain those relationships as such that they would be available and prepared to support founders in their particular journey? And then how do we choose the markets or the clients that will meet us where we are in the journey? I think a lot of founders are ambitious and project the US market as being their destination market. But very often the reality of it is that there are some in-between steps that need to be done, and then there are other connections to be forward. So these are some of the lenses that I want to bring to our discussions, and I have various perspectives. So I'll start with you, Vlad, if you'll indulge me, that from a VC perspective, how do you think a diaspora can help beyond capital? I think capital is an essential part, but then what else should a founder realistically expect or be prepared with when thinking about expanding abroad in seeking guidance from diaspora?
Thanks. In many cases, the funding, it becomes a sort of commodity. So money available or start being available even in smaller ecosystem like ours, and where if you look to investment per GDP, it's still very low. And I think that the value added that diaspora may bring, it's beyond money. And what does it mean this? It means mentoring, it means advising, it means connecting those founders with other successful founders or successful businesses or potential customers in such a way that they will help them grow personally, because that's an important part of scaling. Many companies think about scaling. What does it mean if you ask a startup? It means growing the business, going in other countries. That's only a part of it. You have to grow personally and scale yourself and scale your teams. So you have to understand what does it mean this. How can you scale your leadership? How can you scale yourself? How can you do better? How can you help your team? So it's not just the perspective of going from one market or 2 markets to 5 markets. It's a much deeper and profound one. And I think diaspora, having this kind of experiences and interacting, going out of their comfort zone, because they were forced to move out of their own country, either to study or to develop a business or doing something else. They can bring this kind of experiences, not theoretical ones, but practical ones. They lived what they say, or something like this. And I think that's a much better value added than the money itself.
Thank you. I think that's a very powerful point. And I would, maybe building on that, I would want to ask Silviu to share his experience, because I think his experience is less from the guidance or support that Romanian diaspora had abroad as you moved in as to study in a foreign country, and then you probably have more the experience of what it means to be there, expanding in the market, not necessarily from Romania, trying to branch out and reach out to the German diaspora to help. How was that for you? Adapting to the German market as a Romanian?
I mean, from my perspective, it's hard to compare it with something else when
that's
it's
the only
road you took,
yeah.
right? But from my perspective, it was a very interesting journey, and it was in many ways something that fits my personality.
Yeah.
Maybe
allow me to alter this. Having had that lived experience, what do you feel is missing in the expectations that Romanians that want to expand to Germany are applying? Or what are the misconceptions about what would make a business successful in Germany, having now the context of being more of a local?
Yeah, so maybe giving it also a positive twist. I think what I can mention is what works there very well, and maybe discuss about gaps with individual startup founders. But in that sense, I think something that makes the German market particular is very conservative. If I were to compare it, and we're preparing for a go-to-market in the US, and we're working with the German diaspora in this case to help us enter the market, one of the obvious things is that in the German market, relationships count, paper trail counts, data counts. What other companies have you been able to sell services to? Certificates, what kind of, let's say, high caliber team you have. All of those things count very much. And I think when I would address, let's say, Romanian founders trying to enter the German market, they need to prepare for a lot of bureaucracy. There's a lot of red tape stations, especially in the space we are active, in industrial tech and robotics. These are companies that have been built for generations. They have I compare them with large oil ships. it's very, very hard to move them in any way. They have their own processes, and many of them don't make sense. But once you're inside, it's very, very lucrative. So I guess resilience is key, and storytelling, interestingly, is not. Data is very important.
I think this is very.
If I can add just one more thing about the German market, because many founders are looking to this market because it's one of the biggest in Europe. Few of them understand that they have to localize a site in German.
Yeah.
And it's not rocket science. Or some of the materials should be in German. Or they should have somebody being, especially if they are targeting the Mittelstand, the middle-sized companies, not necessarily the big multinational where everybody speaks English. Many people are speaking English in Germany, but if you do this, your chances to build a relationship and further on go to a POC or to a contract are much higher. So there are very simple, small steps that can be done before targeting or going and investing in a specific market.
I think this you stressed a super important point on that, on how well do you understand the market, and then when you acknowledge the very specific thing that kind of sets that market apart, how do you build those connections with experienced entrepreneurs or locals that could help you navigate that complexity and make sure that you are effective in that respective space? And I wanna build on this point with Tiberiu, because you've worked and lived and have quite a lot of experience with US, MENA, Asia. And beyond the effectiveness of the process of establishment in that country, there are a lot of cultural nuances. What do you think is relevant for investors, but also for founders that are looking at those markets to be effective? What do you think it's missing?
So I'll give you a couple of practical points, like region by region. So I worked in France with startups in a time back in 2013 when France launched its La French Tech initiative, which is their biggest initiative for French startups. And they are extremely proud of their startups right now. When a Romanian startup wants to expand to countries like Germany, France, some of the biggest ones in Western Europe, they really need to understand that they are fighting also on a national pride point of view. I might say something controversial here, but it's not only the business value, it's not only the product value. When a French company, and I'm taking responsibility for this, when a French large company needs to choose between a SaaS product from Romania and a SaaS product from Belgium, France, whatever, they will take that cultural aspect into consideration as well, because they are now very, very proud. Going a little bit to Asia, I'm still surprised. I worked there for a while, and that's the part of the world where hardware is produced mainly. And unfortunately, in this part of the world, at least CEE, because there's not enough capital for large hardware startups, there are very little Romanian startups actually asking for the Romanian diaspora in Asia for recommendations, for intros, at least for gaining access to resources, not necessarily to penetrate that market. But just to give you an example, I know that there are Romanians in the Chinese ecosystem that can get Romanian startups cheaper prices for the Shenzhen factories, where they can produce a lot of things. And going to the last market that I've been involved in for the longest time of my life, in the MENA region, I'll give you another practical point. I actually did a small workshop a while back ago with a Romanian startup that was expanding to the United Arab Emirates, and it was the only Romanian startup that wanted to expand to the MENA region, that asked me in general for introductions, recommendations about the market. And there was one Romanian startup in this numerous Romanian startups expanding to the MENA region who asked me for a workshop about the cultural differences, about how to engage with an Arab decision maker, because they read somewhere that they might do something wrong in a business meeting. All the other Romanian startups that asked me for recommendations. And after I've done an intro, by the way, about your question, they forgot everything about that intro. They never asked me, okay, but how do I deal with that intro? How do I behave in a business meeting? There was only one Romanian startup that said, okay, maybe if I do something in a meeting with an Arab decision maker, maybe I offend them, maybe I ruin the relationship. How do I deal with that? So there are specific points in each market that most of the times Romanian founders are oblivious about, and they stay oblivious about, even though they have the knowledge and the resources in the diaspora.
Well, I think the notion of having the resources and the knowledge is a bit of an overstatement, because I think it is available, but it might be disconnected. And I think there's a lot of merit and value that communities of Romanians in diaspora have in connecting the dots. I think this How to Web, the event, the fact that it happens every year and brings everyone together and highlights or surfaces the value of this information or this situation is important. But then what happens between now and next year? And then what is it that these communities can do to cater or to breach the gap that you mentioned here? So there are Romanians all around the world. There are clearly Romanians that have insight and answer to all the challenges that you've all listed. But how do we make sure that this information lands in the way that is actionable to founders that are looking at those markets or clients and factor them in and increases their efficiency? So I think this is what we're trying to learn from your collective experiences on what do you think it's given that there's something missing, how do we cater to that in making it more effective? And I'm gonna bring that to you, Andrei, because I think you had the chance to pitch in front of investors and on stages that a lot of founders aspire to. So I think you have that experience that is a lot of founders aspire to. And we know, it might be still a misconception, I think lots of things have changed, that Romanian founders are tech heavy, they're very product centric, they know their product in and out, but when it comes down to presenting it and pitching it, there's something missing there. What do you feel made a difference for you in preparing for that?
I think a big difference is how well you understand who you're presenting, who you're pitching to. So if you're presenting to VC investors and you're going to be massively downplaying the markets, the ambition, what you're looking to build, it's just not going to resonate. People are going to say, okay, that's a cool product, that's an interesting technology, but actually what we want to see is $1 billion company. It goes hand in hand with what we were discussing. It's like you really need to know your audience, and you need to know what kind of people you're presenting to. So if you're presenting to, let's say European investors, they have a certain risk appetite, and a lot of the time, again, sort of like on the controversial train here, they don't necessarily want you to build those massive companies. They want something that's a lot less risk, that can give them some returns, but they have higher certainty or higher guarantee of a return. When you speak to Americans don't really, they don't even want to discuss a small return, because it doesn't make any sense. The cost of a missed opportunity is much higher than the cost for them to focus on smaller deals and building smaller businesses. So I would say that's one of the really big points around this, is know the kind of investor you're presenting to, understand understand the maths, understand the size of their fund, understand what they're looking for. Because also if someone has a $20 million fund and you want to raise 50, they're probably not going to deploy the entire fund in one investment. So it's very, very important to know your audience. And I think if you bring this back to the diaspora, I think looking at what we have in London and what we have in the UK, there's a big amount of people from Romania that are now living in London. They have quite a lot of industrial expertise, not only in the industry per se, but in various financial institutions, in a lot of investors, VCs and family offices and so on. So there's a lot of help available. I don't know if it's the easiest type of help to access, but there is definitely a lot of knowledge and a lot of help available. So I would say it's something that we can do more to bring together and not actually to leverage.
I think one of the conversations that I've keep having with founders is how do you go about picking your first market and the one that will make you set apart? I think beyond the aspiration of going to the US, I would like to hear from some of you, or like each of you, how do you how do you selected your first market, and how do you build a network in that country and then nurture those connections as such they turn into partnerships or collaborations, and the role that the diaspora, the various communities played in that. Can I start with you, Vlad?
Sure. The advice that we're offering to the founding teams is to combine basically a sort of minimum structure in assessing the market, and I'll give you some example, with speed and agility. When coming to the structure, in many cases, the assessment is done only on the size of the market. So we go to US because it's a big market. There are a lot of VCs and a lot of funding there. But they misplay or they downplay what's the competitiveness. How competitive is this market? What's your chance to win in that market? Do you have a network? Do you already start having some leads? Do you have a funnel? In many cases, they are thinking, okay, I'm going there, I'm going to hire somebody. Okay, but if that person does not have a minimum infrastructure that you have developed, meaning a lead, some partnership, some people that you know, first, they may say no.
Yeah.
Second, if they say yes, their chances to succeed are very limited because you have not prepared them with anything. You have not equipped them with anything.
Yeah.
So you have to do this before. So before making your luggage and put your money in the pocket, you have to do a minimum development or minimum preparation, looking in those things, not just, okay, it's a big market, and I know that I know some people there, I will fund them. Do the preparation first. And then you also have to act with agility, because the pace of change is so high, and you are missing a lot of opportunities if you stay so much and overthink too much. So you have to combine a minimum structure, a minimum preparation, with the conviction that you have to go there. You may fail, but you have then the strength to come back and to readjust, reset yourself, fine-tune whatever is missing. And I think that's the thing that we're looking at.
I think you should also add what's your right to win in that market. I think that's really important. And it's not about defensibility or IP or anything like that. It's like, what do you have special about the product, the business, whatever you're bringing the service, that market either doesn't have, or that it guarantees the attention that the spotlight's going to be on you. Because I agree with what you're saying as well. If you go to France and you are a complete foreign company and they have options to buy locally, there will be probably a certain bias. And I don't think this is a French-specific bias. I think any country, anywhere in the world, it's going to be easier for them to do business with a company that is registered, built in that country. It's a lot less risk. So they're going to probably prefer that.
I want to add to what Vlad and Andrei said. I always hear from Romanian startups about the US ambition. And they always say we want to go to the US, obviously, because the market is big there and there's a lot of capital there. And there are two factors here. First, as Andrei said, there's a lot of competition there. There's a red ocean there, probably for any B2B, B2C solution that we might have here in the room. There's another point that I want to make. The US market is quite educated. So a lot of startups give me this argument. When I go to the US compared to another region in the world, if I talk to a potential decision maker, my sales cycle will not be 10 meetings. And if I also got a warm introduction from a Romanian in the diaspora who worked with that decision maker, probably my sales cycle will be reduced from 10 meetings to maybe 3 meetings, which is absolutely amazing. The question is, in the competitive landscape, will you actually make it? Do you have that special thing for the decision maker to choose you from a rational point of view, technology, pricing, etc.? And there's another factor that I see, for example, in the MENA region where I worked, which is the hype, which is a little bit different than the education factor that the US market has. The MENA market is not as well educated as the US, but it has a lot of hype. The decision makers there want to have the technologies, the super advanced technologies, the sci-fi technologies. They want to be the first in the world to try them, to test them, to have them and to promote the image of the region and to the image of the countries as the first country that had a 3D printed building, the first country that introduced laws about cryptocurrencies and so on and so forth. So if you're the startup exactly playing into that hype, into that trend, and actually enabling them to brag about themselves, then you have a winning chance, at least in this market. So it's between education and hype.
I think it's very
Maybe
well said. Go
To
ahead.
what
Yeah.
one point? I mean, for us, there was a decision in the beginning if we would go for the US market or the European market. And there were reasons for both. The questions that we asked ourselves back then was, where were our strengths? And both my co-founder and I, he's German, I'm Romanian, we both were very well connected in the German and European industry. We had a reputation, and that was obviously very, very helpful. Plus, interestingly, the legal framework. Europe has some particularities, especially with regard to artificial intelligence and data privacy and protection. And in that sense, for us, it was a question of what would make more sense in terms of edge, to launch a system that is compliant and works and has been penetrating the European market and then launched to the US, or the other way. We saw Europe as a protected market that way, where, let's say, American competitors would have a harder time penetrating, and a market where you can still build a billion-dollar company. So in that sense, for us, this is how we made our decision.
Well, thank you all for sharing, and I think you are a testament to the fact that it requires a lot of agility and resilience to strive in markets, and I think you all demonstrated enough both empathy and fine understanding of the markets that you intentionally chose to operate in, and then ultimately become successful in it. And I think these are great success stories for everyone that is looking at branching out outside Romania. And I think what Mihnea with the Endeavor community, but lots of other communities, including Romanian United Foundation, as well as Ropea, and everyone that is here from a growth community perspective, are actually carving out the space and mapping out the ecosystem internationally to make sure that this path that you've paved forward is more predictable for the others, and it's probably easier for them to map along the way, depending on their stage, the advisors and investors and supporters that they would need to reach the success, especially in markets where they're probably not being as intentional as possible. I know time is limited. I know how much time we have still available. I have one more question, and that would be for the founders and the investors in the community. If there's one action, maybe just one or two or three or whichever it works, but it's a super pointy, what would those next steps be that will provide both the realism, pragmatisms, and agility to effectively branch out outside Romania or be successful globally, and factor in the role of diaspora? If they were to activate the community that are available for them here in Romania and internationally, what should that one action be?
If I could start with the mention that it may not be the easiest one, what I do believe that is we are missing, we have to move from a sort of very small interaction between small communities and diaspora. And these communities are either engaged by Endeavor, by Ropea, by How to Happen, by many, by trying to give a sort of form and structure to this. And what I'm meaning specifically is to have a sort of diaspora network, or diaspora organization, by chapters, in which you have to start building and gather these communities, having a certain purpose and mission. And this could be mobilizing capital, helping, mentoring, even investing, if that's the case. And by doing this, in my view, we are moving, as I said, from individual interactions, many, atomic, to a more systemic interaction, which may bring a much better result. But there's not something that can be done in 2 or 3 weeks, or months even. I think it's a bit more mid to long term.
I think it requires you to build that tribe.
Yes,
build your
yes.
tribe.
But I think we are already having the first steps to different organizations that I have mentioned, and I think they can join the forces in building this organization. this network.
Thank you. Tiberi?
I'll go on the individual route. There's a saying in English, sweat the small stuff. So it's the little things that also count. When you are a Romanian startup interacting with another founder or an expert from the diaspora, again, as we were saying at the beginning, when you ask for a warm introduction, that's one action. But that person knows so much more about the market. So find ways to stay in touch with that person, to ask that person, whether it is on an advisory level, ask that person, how's the market? How are the connections there? How do I need to behave in that market? How are the other startups in the market? And I'll give you a simple example. I have a Romanian friend in Dubai who worked for 20 years for some of the largest cloud computing companies in the region, and he knows all the government and semi-government entities there and how the decision makers there behave. I made some introductions to him for some Romanian startups. They said, thank you very much. They asked for some other introductions, and then they took those meetings themselves without any guidance, any knowledge, even though this Romanian guy is an absolute goldmine. He has 20 years of experience of dealing with those guys. Yet, after the intro, nothing. So sweat the small stuff, all the small details that you can extract from this valuable Romanian guys.
That's a very valuable piece of advice. What would you add to it, Andrei, Silviu?
I would say that it's probably there's two things there. One would be make a plan. It doesn't have to be a very complex, complicated plan, but have some kind of strategy of what you're trying to achieve from the introductions, from the connections you have. And then the second part of that is don't be afraid to ask for help. Because I think a lot of people hesitate, a lot of people still hesitate. And it's a really important point. It's difficult to ask for help, but put yourself out there, ask for help, and think also how you can give back to the community. That's how we're gonna strengthen the network, and that's how we're gonna build a stronger community.
Maybe to add to the points that you've made. I mean, since I'm probably the last in the row in this sense, we spoke about what diaspora can do, and I heard a lot of opening doors. I heard a lot about de-risking with information in the local markets, helping you pitch for the right audience. I heard a lot about providing credibility, right? So also in the connections. And this all sounds very good, but it also shouldn't be done transactional. It's hard for me to provide, I mean, we said a no bullshit panel.
Yes.
No bullshit panel. It's hard for me to provide credibility to a person I just met who wrote me on WhatsApp and said, can you do this intro for me?
Just because they're Romanian.
It doesn't work like that. Yeah. So if you really want a community that works, and we mean it, then it has to be a community. One where I can vouch for someone because I met this person 3, 4, 5 times. I trust this person, and it's not going to ruin my credibility.
Thank you. And connections take time. You have to build them and nurture them to be effective. So I think we're coming out of time. I want to thank you for being so generous with your insight and your feedback. And I hope that this kind of demystified diaspora is not as abstract as one would think. And there's some rawness to it. I'm getting a lot of signals that we are a bit over time. So I'm told to invite all of you for breakfast on the left side. Do we have a minute? No. But thank you very much, and I hope we stay connected and connect over breakfast. There's plenty of things we want to share, and use this opportunity to connect with the panelists here. Thank you.
Thank you.